So here's a comparison people love to make on the surface level, but almost never understand in depth. Tensei Slime and Re Zero. Two isekai giants. Two stories with reincarnated protagonists, two worlds with magic, politics, and characters who either become absurdly powerful or painfully, catastrophically not powerful enough. But if you look past the flashy skills and emotional breakdowns, you find something much more revealing. These two stories use the very concept of power to say completely opposite things about what it means to exist. In Tensura, power is the natural extension of self-awareness. In Re Zero, power is the natural punishment for emotional rupture. One world is built around ascension, the idea that growth refines the soul. The other is built around decay, the idea that suffering stains the soul. And the deeper you go into their metaphysics, the clearer this philosophical split becomes. Tensura's world operates like a divine laboratory, carefully structured to reward refinement, harmony, and integration. Re Zero's world operates like a haunting psychological mirror, where strength always comes with the cost of fragmentation, distortion, and trauma. Most viewers see ultimate skills and authorities and assume they're comparable, just two different power systems doing the same thing. But they're not. They're almost inverse reflections of each other. To understand why, you have to unpack what Tensura believes a soul is versus what Re Zero thinks the soul becomes. In Tensura, a soul is a blueprint. It has potential, shape, in a direction it naturally wants to grow toward. Evolution is not random, it's the soul becoming more itself. When Rimuru evolves, it's not because he grabbed a shiny ability off the ground, it's because his soul shifted, expanded, sharpened, reorganized its internal architecture, and the world responded with a corresponding update. Ultimate skills are born from this alignment. They form on a person's intention, identity, and existence become so synchronized that the world system acknowledges it with a completed conceptual structure. This is why ultimate skills feel clean, structured, and self-consistent. They are basically metaphysical software, elegant and internally coherent. But unlike software, they aren't installed. They grow. An ultimate skill is a soul writing its own operating system. It's the mathematical limit of a being's nature expressed as something that they interact with the world. This is why ultimate skills evolve with their user. Rimuru didn't just acquire Raphael and later upgrade it into Seal. What actually happened is that Rimuru became someone whose soul was capable of housing Seal. Raphael couldn't become Seal until Rimuru himself evolved into someone who could sustain a consciousness that advanced. Guy Crimson's Pride King is similar. It's not powerful because Guy is strong. It's powerful because Guy's identity is unbreakably coherent. He has no inner contradictions. Pride King, as a result, is the perfect conceptual mirror of Guy's essence, supremacy embodied in system form. This is why Tensura's high-level beings talk about true dragons and true demons less as races and more as states of being. Evolution isn't cosmetic, it's the alignment of soul, will, and concept. And in Tensura, alignment equals strength. But if you pivot to Re Zero, you enter a world where alignment is impossible. Trauma fragments people, emotional wounds distort their desires, and suffering causes their identities to splinter in contradictory directions. Where Tensura sees the soul as something that naturally seeks harmony, Re Zero sees it as something constantly threatened by psychological collapse. Which brings us to authorities. Authorities do not emerge from self-realization, they emerge from self-destruction. Authorities are the leftover fingerprints of beings, the witches, whose emotions became so distorted that they broke the rules of reality. They didn't reach enlightenment, they reached the point where their pain, grief, obsession, or desire became cosmically loud enough to overwrite the world. Each authority is not a power, it's a wound. The Witch of Lust is not desire, she's desire twisted past sanity. The Witch of Sloth is not tired, she's devotion corrupted into self-erasure. The Witch of Greed is not ambitious, she's a black hole that refuses to accept existence as it is. So when a person in Re Zero receives an authority, they're not receiving power, they're receiving contamination, an echo of a witch's warped worldview seeping into their identity. This is why the key idea of Re Zero's entire system can be summarized like this. An authority doesn't evolve you, it consumes you until you match the sin it came from. This consumption is not metaphorical, it is literal existential erosion. Petal Juice didn't wield sloth, he was consumed by it. The authority sculpted his behavior, his emotions, his mental patterns, until the man he once was had been hollowed out into a caricature of devotion. Subaru's situation is even more tragic because he didn't earn sloth at all. It accumulated in him as a side effect of suffering, returned by death tearing at his psyche until the emotional residue aligned with sloth nature. Subaru didn't pursue power, power pursued him through the cracks trauma left behind. And then there's Regulus, whose greed looks powerful but functions more like a spiritual cage. His authority freezes his existence, not as a buff, but as a denial of change. Greed protects him by trapping him in a static state, not because he is strong, but because he cannot bear the idea of imperfection. In Re Zero, power is a symbol of emotional imbalance. In Tensura, power is a symbol of emotional completion. This philosophical split is reinforced by how each world treats understanding. In Tensura, comprehension is empowerment. The more you understand a skill, the more you can refine it. The more you understand the laws of magic, the more you can manipulate them. The world rewards learning, literally. Skills reorganize themselves based on your mental clarity. Raphael/Seal becomes increasingly effective because Rimuru's soul stabilizes and expands. This is why the world system in Tensura feels almost benevolent. It is structured, predictable, it wants beings to grow. It encourages evolution, refinement, and harmony between who you are and the power you wield. Meanwhile, in Re Zero, understanding is dangerous. The closer you get to truth, the closer you get to madness. The witch's nature is not something you can comprehend safely, it's something that erodes your sanity the longer you look at it. Return by Death is the perfect embodiment of this. Every loop gives Subaru more knowledge, but that knowledge arrives with trauma, isolation, guilt, and psychological erosion. Tensura says, the more you understand, the more complete you become. Re Zero says, the more you understand, the more vulnerable you become. Now, the interesting part is how these differences affect narrative structure. Tensura uses horizontal escalation. Characters gain more breadth, more skills, more evolution, more conceptual refinement. Rimuru goes from slime to demon lord to ultimate existence, not by losing himself, but by becoming a more articulated version of himself. Re Zero uses vertical introspection. Power doesn't expand the world outward, it forces the character to collapse inward and confront the darkest parts of themselves. Subaru doesn't become powerful by mastering an ability, he becomes powerful by enduring the emotional cost of knowledge. This is why Rimuru's transformations feel like milestones, while Subaru's feel like burdens. And this ties into another major narrative difference, the role of free will. In Tensura, your evolution matches your will. In Re Zero, your authority threatens to override your will. When Rimuru gains a new skill, he can choose how to apply it. The transformation aligns with his goals, his personality, his growth. Even when Seal influences him, it's symbiotic, a partnership between two aligned wills. But in Re Zero, when you gain an authority, your choices begin to drift towards the sin's temperament. Petaljuice's devotion isn't devotion. It's the authority puppeteering his emotional impulses. Regulus's greed isn't ego, it's greed's refusal to acknowledge others as independent beings. In Re Zero, you don't choose your power chooses who you become. Another fascinating layer is how each world interprets identity stability. Tensura's system rewards coherence. If your identity is strong, clear, and self-understood, your evolution becomes smoother and your ultimate skills become more refined. This is why beings with strong concepts, true dragons, primordials, and high-level demons have such clean, powerful skill sets. Re Zero punishes coherence. If you try to maintain a stable identity while wielding an authority, the conflict between your true self and the sin's nature tears you apart. The more stable you try to be, the more fragile your psyche becomes under the strain. And then there's the emotional core. Tensura is a story where the world makes sense. It has rules. If you work hard, understand yourself, and commit to growth, you rise. Rimuru's journey is heavy at times, but it's fundamentally optimistic. Even tragedy leads to evolution. Re Zero is a story where the world does not care about your hope. It is indifferent, cruel, and psychologically hostile. Growth does not come from confidence, it comes from surviving despair long enough to find a sliver of meaning on the other side. Tensura's power system is built for empowerment.
Re Zero's power system is built for suffering, which is why comparing strength between these universes is fundamentally pointless. They are metaphysically incompatible. Tensura's system is built around measurable values: energy existence, magicule density, conceptual hierarchy. Re Zero's system does not scale that way because its power is emotional, symbolic, and thematically tied to psychological collapse. Rimuru and Subaru are not meant to be compared because the worlds they inhabit do not reward the same virtues. Rimuru becomes stronger by learning how to integrate the world into his identity. Subaru becomes stronger by learning how to survive without losing his identity. One is expansion, one is endurance. One is evolution, one is consequence. One is the soul refining itself upward, the other is the soul carrying scars downward. And that is why ultimate skills feel like ascension. Elegant, structured, the soul reaching a state of conceptual purity. And authorities feel like sin wearing the mask of power. A shadow that deepens the more you rely on it. Two worlds, two philosophies, two completely different answers to the question, what does power reveal about a person? So if you take anything from this comparison, let it be this. Tensura believes power is the natural expression of who you choose to become. Re Zero believes power is the consequence of what you fail to escape. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this deep dive into metaphysics, narrative psychology, and the philosophical anatomy of power systems, make sure to like, subscribe, and tell me which world's power structure you want dissected next. Until then, evolve carefully, and whatever you do, don't let any authorities find their way into your soul.